Live in Townsville, this is Paul Murray Live, Our Town.
G'day Australia and g'day Townsville! The first Our Town for 2024, thanks to the wonderful people of Harvey Norman. It is here in this beautiful part of North Queensland, Townsville, where I can tell you the humidity, it's 600% and has been for the past couple of weeks. Now, it's cooled down to a mere 88% humidity, but we have had a magnificent weekend from the All-Stars that we'll show you in a couple of minutes' time, all the way through to some great experiences. But, of course, the whole point of being here is to celebrate regional Australia. Again, thanks to the good people of Harvey Norman, we're able to do that for you yet again for now our 6th year on the road around the country, and it's good to be in the parts of the country that most of the media, well, they just point out at the map when it comes to the weather. We're here and in the front line. And as I said, Friday night was a huge experience for everyone in Townsville, which of course was the Indigenous All-Stars. The Indigenous All-Stars versus the Maoris at the stadium. It's a couple of years old, but it still feels brand new. It was a great experience for us to be there a little bit earlier. In fact, this was part of our experience this weekend. I can explain that if you were looking for top flight athleticism, it was at the All-Stars. That was me mucking around on a jet ski. You'll also in a couple of minutes see us mucking around with a croc that was looking at the fat bloke you are watching on telly right now and going, the buffet is open. Have a look. Go.
Wow! That is so cool! Oh, that is so amazing.
Now you got the hang of it. You got this for sure now there, Freddie.
Wow.
My voice goes really high when I'm being really masculine in front of a crocodile. But there I was. All right, before we get to all of that, as you know, I like to have my say on the day's news, and how can we not talk about the past couple of days when the illegal boat arrivals have again begun. Now, we learn that there's been about a dozen or so boat arrivals since the greatest Prime Minister was elected in May of 2022. But the most recent examples, well, they landed both on Friday and again on Saturday. Big problems for a government that, of course, in the Parliament has spent the week talking about how they were big on borders and big on national security. Oh, here's some people floating in from Pakistan. Here's some people floating in again, paying the people smugglers. But I've got to say, while I know it's serious, what about the on top of it details-focused Prime Minister? You know, the guy who kind of told us while he was applying for the job he's not a details guy. Remember when, oh, look, I don't know what the unemployment rate is, I'm just here to be the lipstick on the lefty pig. Well, he proved that because the first time he learnt about it wasn't from the Home Affairs Minister, it wasn't from some admiral in Western Australia. He was learning about it from a reporter asking him a question, and he had no idea. I don't know if this makes you feel safe if China ever invaded, but have a look.
Prime Minister, we're hearing that an asylum seeker boat has arrived off to the Western Australian coastline. Do you know anything about that?
I've been travelling in the car, so I'm not. I haven't been advised about that.
OK, this concerns me. He's the Prime Minister in 2024 who thinks that he's driving a truck in 1984 where they haven't come up with the Motorola mobile phone yet and the old 018 number, where, you know, there was a couple of fancy pants people who had a mobile phone. But I'm pretty sure a quarter of the way into the 21st century, our Prime Minister might have one of these magical devices, these special security devices that mean someone from anywhere in the world can ring you to say, PM, not one but 2 boat arrivals. For his part, Peter Dutton, who of course, along with Scott Morrison, along with the late great Jim Molan, they put Operation Sovereign Borders in place. They know how this works. So when they say there's holes in the operation, you know it's Swiss cheese. Roll a tape.
I think there are very significant issues when the Prime Minister of our country is not even aware, hasn't received any briefing, doesn't have the protections put in place with surveillance mechanisms, etc., to pick up a boat that arrives on our shores. It demonstrates that this government has lost control of our borders.
Now, I'm not going to join the conga line of saying, that's it, the borders are open again. Look, it has been a couple. It has been 12 in their time in office. Let's see what next week and the week after provide. But as always on this show, I like to show you the data, show the evidence, not just the bluster, also show you the stuff behind it, including the Prime Minister tries to present himself as Mr. Operation Sovereign Borders. There is no difference between this government and the last government, apart from the fact that my phone doesn't work. OK. But interestingly, maybe Toto should have to bark him important information. I don't know. Just ideas we're having for you in Townsville tonight. Now, he's out there basically saying no difference between the old and the new. Roll the tape.
That Operation Sovereign Borders remains in place. We are implementing the policies that we said we would before the election, and this is just the latest demonstration of it.
Small problem. Operation Sovereign Borders has three parts to it. Turnbacks, temporary protection visas and offshore detention. As you know, when it came to turn back the boats, the current bloke who's in charge of it, ultimately that being the Prime Minister, well, less than 10 years ago, he was arguing with his then leader, Bill Shorten, about whether the policy should be to turn back boats. Now, I get it, politicians say one thing, do another, but when somebody's willing to argue, as he did 10 years ago, against a policy that has saved lives, then you know what side his heart is on in all of this. In fact, because my mobile phone works and I can Google it, we found what he said in 2015.
And when we talk about boats, of course, we're talking about people on boats. I'm of the view that I would just find it... I couldn't ask someone else to do something that I couldn't see myself doing. And if people were in a boat, including families and children, I myself couldn't turn that around. I would want to make sure that they were safe and secure. That was a position that I came to. I respect people on the other side of the debate who came to a different position.
So now the guy who was telling us, you know, my word is my bond, was saying within 10 years that something as fundamental as, do you oppose what has been proven to work? Because remember, from 2013, 2014, 2015, it was proven to work. But because he was still holding on to the lefty ideals of the man who was running against Bill Shorten to be leader, but didn't assume he would be anytime soon, he could still be what he is at his heart, which is the hardcore lefty who doesn't want to do the tough and difficult and ugly, if you will, stuff around turning a boat back and sending it that way. But also, as I mentioned, the three pillars of this thing, offshore detention, and we know that the people inside the government have been leaking very aggressively to the media about the problems with offshore detention and which company got this contract and all the rest of it. All of that is about undermining offshore detention. Then there is, of course, turnback, which they say is their policy, presumably has happened, but the PM's heart's not really in it. And then there's the third part, which, as I say, is about temporary protection visas. This is the ultimate sugar on the table. Now, the Prime Minister says this about the system that we have today.
Our position on Operation Sovereign Borders is very clear, and that people who attempt to arrive here by boat will not settle here.
But remember, of course, between 2007 and 2013, 50,000 people came here on boats. The ones that were legitimate, well, they found their way into the community. The ones who had no path, well, they sat in detention until eventually they left. But then there was a group of 19,000 people. 19,000 people who were not refugees. They lost their appeals to be refugees. They lost their appeal for the appeal for the appeal for the appeal to be refugees. But by removing the temporary protection visa, 19,000 people, all in one day in December in their first 6 months of government, essentially were given the full protection of Australian citizenship. And while the Prime Minister wants to pretend that the same system existed that has existed for the past 10 years or so, it's not true. And not just because the odd boat bobs in or out, but because the removal of the temporary protection visa system and their failure to deal with the High Court decision about indefinite detention means that eventually, if you wait it out, you will get to be a citizen of Australia. You will be able to, thanks to the advocates or the sob stories that will be in the media, you will eventually make it into the community. And while Australians in and of themselves are not heartless human beings who believe that somebody who's coming from some horrible part of the world should have to stay in that horrible part of the world because, well, too bad. We believe in a system where there's a front door. Remember when Trump talked about his wall, but it'd have a really little tiny front door in it? Well, ours is a big front door. Football stadiums of people every single year Australia welcomes to the country from refugee camps around the world. We have a front door system to mean that people are able to be saved from hellholes around the world. But when somebody turns up on our shores, waits it out in detention, and takes 19,000 places that would otherwise be for the people who were refugees, who came through the front door, well, the system doesn't work. Now, we have the natural advantage of being a giant island, but the difference between being a giant island of which people smugglers in Indonesia do the sums on which bit of the coast they're going to launch because they think no one will be there, and a country that says regardless of whether you land offshore here in Townsville or whether you land in the sandiest part north of Broome in Western Australia, if we find you, we'll make sure you get a glass of water and then you're going to go to the back of the queue. Any break in that resolution means that people will tough it out. Now, also, if you're coming from a country like Pakistan or Sri Lanka, these are not countries that are next door to us. Again, the advantage of being an island. You see, to be a refugee, according to the lefties at the United Nations, whatever bad country you're in, you have to go to the nearest, safest country. And there's quite a few between here and Pakistan. But when people are making their way to this country from places like Pakistan, they are not doing it for safety. They are doing it for the sugar that's on the table that this government put on the table. That says, if you wait it out, you will eventually find a way in. And that's not a system that anyone voted for at the last election. But as this government shows us time and time and time again, it doesn't matter what you voted for, you're going to get the lefty policies that they promised they definitely wouldn't put in place. And just finally on this too, who do you trust with our national security? Do you trust Andrew Giles, the immigration minister, or clueless Claire O'Neill? I wouldn't think so. Or what about Peter Dutton? Is he the one that you think, if he was the Prime Minister, that he would be having any half-assed attitude about what boats get turned around or not? We will see what happens. But the Prime Minister has always been bad on boats, and in my view, always will be. Now, another thing that certainly matters here in North Queensland is what car you get to drive. Now, old Casanova Bowen, and in case you don't know what that means, Casanova would be someone who everything they touch, they form a relationship with. Let me put it that way. Now, as you know, he introduced fuel efficiency standards, which suggest that from 2028, if you carry the one and you buy the right type of car, you might be able to save some money. But apparently, this new push towards EVs, well, it won't affect what cars you get to buy.
No model will be mandatory, no model will be banned.
Only problem is, what they're doing is they're going to introduce a cap. And they're going to say to anyone who wants to sell cars in Australia that you're only allowed this much in terms of the emissions. So, of course, if you sell bigger cars, bigger emissions, which means you're going to be able to sell fewer cars. Or in the case of some brands, no cars at all. And while I don't have a problem with EVs, if you want to putt them around the city, good luck to you. But the idea that people who are tradies or people who want to cover the big distances that people do in places like Townsville, well, there's going to be a problem. National Senator Matt Canavan actually looked through the detail here and explains why the new cars that lots of people drive in a place like Townsville are either going to be too expensive or will not be for sale, according to this. Follow the bouncing ball. The most popular car sold in Australia last year was the Ford Ranger. According to the government's figures, it produces 182 grams of carbon dioxide per kilometre driven. In 2029, the government's emissions limit for light commercial vehicles, such as the Ford Ranger, will be 81 grams of carbon dioxide. So today's Ford Ranger would be 101 grams over the limit, and at a tax of $100 per gram, the Ford will get an extra $10,000 on a price should you choose to buy it. Also, things like the Toyota Hilux, have a look. That would end up having an extra $13,000 on top of it. What about a Ford Ute? That could end up with an extra $6,000 on it. What about a Land Cruiser? Well, again, you could end up in a scenario there of almost $13,000 on top of what is the current price to buy a car. Maybe if you want to buy something like a Hyundai i30, that'll cost you an extra, again, $7,000. It goes on and on. A Triton, $8,600. And if you think, oh, well, OK, what about just a family SUV? If you want to get a Kia Sportage, that will cost you, thanks to Chris Bowen, an extra $4,810. Townsville, do you want Chris Bowen to decide what car you can drive? No. What message would you like to send him in a non-sweary fashion? I agree, they can't come up with the word either. But on the behalf of the people in Townsville and the people who want to drive whatever the hell they want to drive, Bowen, go away, please. But there's a chance that that actually may happen, because another little story that's around this weekend is that a bunch of local mayors are getting ready to pull off what Di Lee was able to pull off when she killed off Christina Keneally at the last election. And I know how sad you were about all of that. Well, local mayors are planning to run, including people running against Chris Bowen. So there's a chance Chris Bowen gets flushed by the local mayor. Now, we will get to that, of course, when we return to the studio tomorrow. But what an experience we had at the Townsville Stadium on Friday night. Harvey Norman, for a long period of time now, I think since it started, they have been supporting the All-Stars for the past few years. The All-Stars game has not just been Australian Indigenous players, but also Maori players as well. And here was our great experience on Friday night. At the local Harvey Norman, it is one big party. It feels like half the town's turned out to meet their heroes and celebrate these two special cultures.
Today you get the chance to meet some of our amazing players from both the male and female team.
We're out in the community embracing what's happening around, Townsville and the suburbs around, but it's so the guys can actually see how this is just more than a game itself.
Really special week to be able to showcase both of our amazing cultures.
Young kids are watching and they want to grow up to be like us at one stage, and I was a young kid wanting to be in the shoes I'm in right now, so the power is immense and it's continuing to evolve each and every year.
We've met the players, we've got all the merch. It's been raining all day, but who cares? It's time for the footy! The women's game set the tone perfectly for a brilliant but bruising night. The Indigenous All-Stars took the honours, and now, time for the men. The players, they really want to honour culture, but also they're bloody good footy players.
Oh, well, it's not just good for the game, it's for the culture from wherever they come from, mate.
What do you want to say to all of the players?
Good job.
Good job there, well done. Everyone give them a thumbs up. Well done, everyone. Hey! Did you take the night off from work tonight?
Yes. She took the day off.
All right, cool. She called in sick, but it's okay.
Just the two cultures coming together. It's amazing, the First Nations coming together and the respect for one another. It's good. It's great.
Andrew Abdo, the boss of the NRL. This is an amazing celebration of footy, but more importantly, the people who love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to smile and just really soak it up. This is a whole week. It's not just a game of footy. And it's about culture and it's about celebrating community. So it's pretty special.
And what a game. And it was 2 from 2 from the Indigenous All-Stars. First the women, then the men. They came through with an incredible victory, and that's back-to-back wins this year and last year. But the biggest winners, as always, are the fans and this beautiful game of rugby league.
What a game! What a way to start a rugby league season! How good is Townsville?
Yes, they had a jersey in my size, and I was very pleased to do so. Matty Bowen was part of course, the Indigenous All-Stars team. He's a legend of footy in these parts. Give it up for the great man. How are you?
Mate, thanks for having me.
And you're wearing the footy shorts tonight, even better. Now, I'm going to... this might seem weird, but I'm just going to say. As a person who's only ever watched the game, I didn't understand everything about All-Stars until I went. And when I went on Friday, there was a couple of little things that I saw. I saw that it was Indigenous kids that were the ball boys, that it was the Indigenous kids that were part of the dancers, that it was Indigenous kids at all parts of the game. And I 100% understand now how important it is, not just to see the blokes and the women bashing away on the field, but to see an entire game that's got Indigenous involvement everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. I think, back in 2010, they started the concept of the Indigenous team playing against the All-Stars. They know All-Stars was meant to be obviously picking 2 of the best players in each club. And they sort of went away from that. Now we're playing against the Maori team. So we had a wonderful experience last year. We went over to Rotorua and experienced their culture. It was great to see them, obviously coming here, and we having Townsville just a surrounding area, so a lot of Indigenous and people, and it was great to see the weekend. It was, always good to cap off the win, but the week of celebrations and sharing our culture and their culture without the community was pretty good.
Well, that's what I loved, was that there is the whole week buy-in, right? So you've seen finals and you've seen Origin and you've seen sort of big build-ups. You've seen, how Brisbane goes nuts for Magic Round. And I just love that there was all of this stuff that was so visible that you could go to for free, and kids loved it.
Most definitely. I think that's what the players enjoy. We got guys, leaders now in our community. Obviously, you got Latrell Mitchell, you got Nico Hines, Katie Walker didn't play, obviously, and Josh Adokar. So these guys are at the pinnacle of their sport at the moment, and guys are leaders in our community. So these kids look up to them, and no doubt on the weekend they didn't let anyone down. So it's pretty good.
When the team is named and first gets together, do they talk in the same way that an Origin team would about how good it is to have made this team? This is something they wanted to achieve as a young footballer.
Most definitely. I think if we had your number before that, we were chasing players up until Saturday night. So, but yeah, I think me growing up, I always wanted to put the Queensland jersey on. But when this concept came about, I always wanted to play for my people, and I'm proud of my culture, and represent my mum and dad and my grandparents. So these players today are obviously in the same boot. So yeah.
So Matty, you love Townsville, obviously, as a player, and now you're sticking around. What's it like as a city away from football? Does it mean a lot to you?
It is. You mentioned this Cowboy Stadium before. I'm still chasing my statue. I'm still waiting for it. So.
Yeah, where's his statue? Give the man a statue, please. We've got the mayor here, we've got the local MP. Consider it done, man.
It is, yeah. I'm still here, still enjoying the play. So I obviously, played all my career here, and I raced my kids here. So we enjoy the place, and obviously I love the Cows as well. So.
Good stuff. Matty, lovely to see you. Congrats on what you've done. Good on you. He's an absolute local legend. Matty Bowen, Cowboys player, Queensland player, and of course all there in the All-Stars. And again, Harvey Norman have backed it in since day one, as they have with our town. And speaking of, straight after the break, looking forward to having a bit of fun, everything from crocodiles to, yes, a big bloke falling off a jet ski. I know you want to see it, so you'll see it after the break. Welcome back to the Townsville Brewing Co. right here in the heart of beautiful Townsville. Thanks to Harvey Norman. This is Paul Murray Live's Our Town, and just across the water from here is beautiful Magnetic Island. Maggie, of course, is known to the locals, and Lauren Forbes had a look at this amazing bit of Australia.
Just a 20-minute ferry ride from Townsville lies the tropical paradise Magnetic Island. It's home to the largest colony of koalas in Northern Australia. And while you might spot them exploring the island, you can meet these cuddly locals at Selina Koala Wildlife Park.
So we've got our king of the koalas, our big boy Thor, and then we've got our two ladies, Amaru from Australian Wildlife Hospital, and of course our beautiful Pebbles.
So this is Pebbles?
This is Pebbles, so we'll have some introductions here. So she's just waking on up. Of course, it's one of the hottest times of the day right now. So she's looking over me thinking, hey, what's going on? Oh, how beautiful.
You can get up nice and close and interact with wildlife here, like fish, the olive python.
Harry the wombat also loves a good belly rub when he's not ducking for shade.
They can run at speeds of up to 38 kilometres per hour.
One of the best ways to get around the island is by topless car, and MI Rentals has just that, offering custom wheels for daily hires.
This is Jurassic Park, one of the 10 topless jeeps that you can hire on the island. Let's take it for a spin. So what would you say to a potential holiday maker that's considering coming up this way?
I would say we're one of the best places in Australia to go to, in fact in the world. We've got easy access, we've got an airport right next door. We don't have the weather conditions everybody else has. We've got brilliant winters and most of the year it doesn't rain.
You can also explore the breathtaking landscape by water. Our friends Magnetic Island Time Cruises took us out to sea for a special snorkelling tour.
Different bays has got different things, really. We see coral trout, they're best fish. The orange ones with blue dots all over them, delicious in and out of the water.
For all the adventure enthusiasts out there, get ready for an intimate snorkelling experience, exploring this underwater paradise. How good is this?
Back on land, lace up your shoes for Fort's Walk in Horseshoe Bay, one of the most popular tracks on the island. The trail leads you to incredible views and World War II relics, part of a network of walks stretching over 25 kilometres, before finishing the day, relaxing on the beach, taking in the magnetic scenery.
Thank you, Lauren. Do appreciate it, and particularly enjoyed getting around in the Jeep. Two people who represent this area, both in the Senate and in the Parliament, none other than the wonderful Philip Thompson. Give it up for the member for Herbert and Susan McDonald, Senator for Queensland, big fella, lovely lady. Hello. Now, Phil, so good to be able to be here in person with you both. This is an incredible part of Australia. We all know the story of it, where at times it's been razor thin. Now you guys have built a very solid following here. But this area, when you're in opposition, very easy for the people in Canberra to just go, not interested. But you're not a person who ever backs down. Neither of you are. It is a world away from Canberra, but you never let them forget how important this joint is, do you?
Oh, correct. You know, I love the people here. That's why I've decided to raise my family. They're resilient. They're fighters. They are just great people that, you know, want to make sure that we're never missing out from the southeast, and my job is to fight for them. And I go to Canberra. I've kicked my government in the last parliament in the shins, and I'm doing the same here because we deserve our fair share, and we should never be forgotten about because we are the powerhouse of the north.
Because, Susan, I mean, you get that experience particularly in the Senate, right? Yeah. You'll see these sort of Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane-faced Greens, right, who've got all this idea about how we change the world, and their assumption, seemingly, is that anything outside of the cities is just a place for a wind farm, right? Yeah. What's it like competing against that sort of logic? Because it really is like uphill, downhill. It's completely different.
It's hard work, isn't it? Because it is in the regions that we grow the food, that we mine the resources. We have these great tourism assets. This is the place that drives the GDP of Australia. And we love living here. This is why we live here.
They're pumped doing it. Yeah. So it's this thing where, but also a perfect example of that city and regional divide is things like the fuel efficiency stuff, right? Now, again, there are lots of ways where governments basically come up with clever or long terms that people start to roll their eyes. Once it starts to be if they came out and said, look, we want to clean the atmosphere, so therefore no more utes, they know what the political response would be. Instead, it's up to the car companies what they decide to sell or not sell. And again, if you want to have an electric vehicle, good luck to you. I'm a petrol head, I bleed red, HDT, all of that, right? However, if you're somebody who thinks that's the better mousetrap, but for people living here, it's a work tool.
That's right.
And that's why they want the right to buy what they want to buy, right?
And that's why when you walk outside, there is four-wheel drives and vehicles to do a job, to deal with the floods, the wets, the whatever you're dealing with. People need a choice. And if we leave it up to car companies, Australia will be the last one on the list. We're a very small market. We'll end up with nothing. It'll be the end of the run. It'll be more expensive, and Australians will lose out.
But government should be out of their life.
Yes,
not in their life.
Yeah.
If you want to buy a Ranger, buy a bloody Ranger. Get out of the way. Let people live their life. I'm sick of this big government approach. I want people to buy whatever they want. You know what? I want small businesses here and people to make lots of money. Because I want them to have less government encroachment, and I just think that this is a big government approach, and it's bad for the region, it's bad for Townsville.
So, I've got to talk about the youth crime element, because generally this is meant to be, we always want it to be a positive representation, but I can't pretend that issues haven't been happening. Now, I know there's the political element, state election coming up, we'll see what happens, local government elections as well, we'll deal with all of that. But, I mean, you know what normal people, right? And they could be normal people that have been Labor voters their whole life, right? But they still look you in the eye and go, fair, dude, enough, right? It feels like we have hit the enough point in time, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah, I think that it doesn't matter who you vote for or how you voted. And to be honest, when it comes to this issue, I don't care how you vote. You have to stop the high crime that we have here. And there is only one level of government that can do it. It's the state. We have people that feel like prisoners in their own home. We've got legislation that doesn't work. And instead of making changes, it's not happening. Just before, I was walking around talking to people, 3 people raised youth crime to me. Their house has been broken in like mine has. There needs to be changes, and we've got to stop going, oh, OK, it's the state, they just got to be better. No, do your job or get out of the way, because we need to get on with it now, because it's not fair.
Well, wasn't there one of the local MPs, I think he's from the Labor Party, saying it was a beat-up?
Yeah.
Do you think, is youth crime a beat-up, guys? No. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought
People
so.
have had a gutful, and it is not unreasonable that they should feel safe, not only in their homes, but, on the roads, going to work. It's not okay to be carjacked in Australia. We are a civil society. We've worked hard for it. We've bled for it. People like Phil have gone away to fight for our rights and protect other people's, and yet, right here, Australian state politicians won't protect us.
I want my young daughters to be able to live here, grow here, and to have a future here. But with the youth crime so in everyone's face and happening to everyone that lives here, I'm scared for them. I'm scared every time I leave.
This bloke's a rock star, you know it. Susan McDonald, I'd say the same. Thank you both, both of you. All the best. Good on you, Philip. Part of the National Defence team with Peter Duttons as well. All right, now let's keep talking about our incredible experiences that we had here over the weekend. Everything from jet skis to crocodiles and a lot of fun in between. They're big. They're bad. And they're very hungry. It's feeding time for the daddy of all beasts at the Billabong Sanctuary.
What did you think of the crocodile?
He done a big snap.
Are they big and scary?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you could feed a crocodile anything, apart from your mum and dad, what would you feed a crocodile?
Mum.
Why mum, not dad?
Because mums are better.
Oh, yeah, okay. You reckon they taste better, right?
Yeah.
Crocs, wow. Who are we about to meet?
Krakatoa, 5.2 metres, over 1 tonne in weight. Largest croc here in mainland Queensland. Only the Guinness World Record holder is bigger than him.
Okay. And what does Krakatoa like to eat apart from Wagyu TV presenters?
Mate, you'll do just fine. Whatever he can get. Not fussy at all. How about it? You ready to feed the big boy Krakatoa?
Bloody oath. Let's do it.
Yeah, awesome. Let's do it.
Look at that.
This is holder.
Teasing a crocodile. Broke your stick. Whoa! Oh, that is so amazing.
Now that you've fed one, do you want to get your hands on one and hold one?
Dundee, eat your heart out. I got this one.
Our mate Luke Nocco from Poseidon Jet Ski Tours is warming up for his next victim. Now, for a husky gent who's not very coordinated, how's this going to go for me?
Mate, it'll go well. You're not the biggest we've had on here. There's been...
Please say top 5, top 10.
We'll go top 20.
Yeah, good, all right. Yeah, top 20 fat people. Time for challenge number 2. Let's go, baby!
So I think Paul's done himself a mischief here. How'd you go, Paul?
That was fantastic. So I've hung with the crocodiles, I've thrashed a jet ski, but it's time for something just a little more polite. At the fabulous Watermark Bar and Restaurant, it's time for my final challenge of the day. It's tasty. Yeah, I'd like the full cocktail Tom Cruise experience.
All right.
I'm assuming you're going to be Tom Cruise and I'm Brian Brown.
All right. Well, we've made one today called the Murray, all right?
Thank you.
So it's basically just a virgin spicy margarita. We've got the lime juice straight in there.
Lime juice, hello.
Lime juice, some chili.
Oh, hello.
There you are.
Look at the wrists.
The wrists. It's all about the wrists.
Look at you.
Right?
But you've got wrist. You've got. It's a little dance.
Little bit of
I love
flair.
it. It's got everything happening.
Yeah, we go ice.
Oh,
boom,
beautiful.
Flip that.
Oh, hello.
Pop a top on it.
Yes. Oh, yes. Right, time to taste the fruits of our labour, the Murray Marg. Cheers, Townsville. That's spicy! I've no plan to give up my day job to become a bartender. But anyway, the Murray Marg available at the Watermark here in Townsville. Mention my name and pay full price. All right, quick break. Back with more here, live from Townsville. Plenty to fire up about, including how this joint was able to clean itself up after the most recent of very heavy rain. On second. Thank you very much. Now, of course, Tropical Cyclone Kirrily, you remember we were covering it live at the time. Thankfully, been and gone, but areas need to clean up after things like that. And while thankfully not as bad as what has happened in the past, and fingers crossed, a sign of what is there into the future, it is something that a place like Townsville has to deal with. And Lauren takes us through the effort that is part of living in tropical Queensland.
When Tropical Cyclone Kirrily tore through Townsville, chaos and destruction were left behind. But amidst the damage, a group of dedicated heroes emerged, braving heatwave conditions to restore the city.
There's a lot of elements that are very dangerous to our job without having all the extras like trees and rain around, so the extra conditions and then the windstorms that came in with the lightning. 66,000
homes were left in the dark across the region, the majority of those in Townsville. Despite Ergon crew member Brock Farrell having no power himself for 4 days, he was armed with unwavering determination to bring the city back to life.
No aircon is pretty hard, so we had people coming out to us, giving us cold drinks, ice blocks, thanking us pretty much the whole time, every day. It was really uplifting.
Ray Goodmanson also sprang into action in the aftermath, transforming the Blue Water Community Centre into a haven for impacted locals.
That day we started cooking for people, provide hot meals, takeaways for those who wanted them, and a few cool drinks. Water was a big one. We supplied we actually gave away a lot of water. We run out of things.
Ray and his team worked around the clock, whipping up 120 delicious meals each day for those affected by the cyclone.
More than 160 SES volunteers were on the ground for the month of January, giving 3,400 hours of their time assisting the community.
A lot of people up here are resilient. They have their houses set up, they have generators, they're prepared for that because we live in the climate.
After responding to back-to-back natural disasters in Queensland, including 2 cyclones and major floods in the north, the spirit of resilience in the community is shining through.
2 people who represent their community, they're part of their community, they love their community. None other than the local mayor, Jenny Hill, who is up for re-election in the next couple of weeks. She's always been very kind to our show, and I do appreciate it very much, even if she disagrees with much of the start of it, which is fine. You're off the hook there. And of course, Kevin Herney is with the Rural Fire Service up here as well. Lovely to see you. Thank you very much. Lovely to see you again. It is part of life in tropical areas where things are going to come and go. It feels like you've got it down, practiced pretty well. But how do locals not get tired of it?
So the key in all of this is making sure that you don't cry wolf. So, like we met, for example, during this event, we met at 7 a.m. one morning because if the Weather Bureau had said to us, oh, we're going to get a storm surge of 3 metres, we would have had to evacuate anything up to 10,000 people from our beachfront.
Wow.
So we leave it to the last possible moment. We had everything prepared. We had the evacuation plans prepared, transport maps prepared, how we would work with the police and SES to get everyone in and out. They came to us and said, look, we've changed our storm tide alert. It's only going to be 0.6 of a metre. We pumped it into the formula, didn't have to move anyone. So the community knows that if we put an alert out, we mean it. We're not just going to say, you've got to evacuate, you've got to do this, because we're not prepared.
Yeah.
We do it because we know exactly what the best data is, and that means we've got to move people.
Well, and it's that thing, Kevin, too, where when you've got volunteers, some that have been around for a while, some that have just joined, it's a pretty well-oiled machine that responds to things, doesn't it?
It is, and it's the elder volunteers have got to lead by example, be prepared. But we, for this latest blow, we prepared 4 days before, telling everyone that, get your food, get your medicines, get your water, fuel up your generators, make sure that they go, which some of them didn't at the time, so out of service. But it's all to do with being prepared, and we're quite used to that.
Well, also, I mean, you've got to deal, obviously, with the streets of the CBD, suburban areas, but then there's a little further out. In fact, when we were at Billabong Sanctuary yesterday, having fun with the crocs and meerkats and all the rest of it, Cameron, who's their new general manager, he tells us what it was like for them in a clean-up. Have a look. This place was completely flattened.
Yes. Unfortunately, we really bared the brunt of the cyclone, had multiple trees down, branches down everywhere. You sort of walked in and thought a bomb had sort of gone off. Luckily, no structural damage was done to any of our enclosures, but the actual paths and that were unwalkable.
So as busy days goes, that's kind of up there, right?
Yeah, the recovery was a huge few days. But yeah, there was a lot of work to do and we just put our head down and got it done.
See, and I loved, all of his people, volunteers, mates, they all get together. I mean, this is the story of this community, is that it does get together, it does clean up. And again, there's going to be differences between this and 2 years ago and 5 years, all of that, right? Okay. But it does seem something that is very special about Townsville, and it must be an honour to represent, is that community that pulls together pretty quickly. They don't need permission from government to do it, but you do your best to try to coordinate.
We do. I mean, the reality is we need the community to be resilient. We can't do it ourselves. Government can't do everything. So we ask the community to help look after itself, and every individual has a responsibility to do that. Whether it's how you sandbag your home if you think you're going to need sandbagging, or after the event, if, and Kevin knows, making sure your gen sets are working.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people here who've been through a lot who know you need some of those simple things because the power goes out, and you said it could go out for 2 days, it could go out for 2 weeks.
And then, Kevin, I always find this when any place we've been after something like this happens, where again, as Jenny was saying before about you don't want to cry wolf and you don't want to tell people that the end of the world's coming when it's not. Yeah. But you also don't get credit for anything you prevent. You only sort of cop it for what you respond to, right? So you would prefer situations to be better prepared and bullets dodged than, OK, all hands on deck and let's flip this over. And it's a bit of a change in mindset, isn't it, too, where a lot of people, they know how to respond, but they've got to put the effort into being ready too, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, as a community, they all pull together. The morning after the latest blow, Kirrily, by 7 o'clock, myself and my off-sider was out in the field, taking photos, documenting problems, relaying straight back to council. And they were down that afternoon. The next day, Saturday morning, bingo, all the workmen were there.
Yeah.
Within 24 hours, they were there on the job.
It's good to see.
Cutting trees, cleaning up, looking after people. It's really a community effort.
Well, please thank all of the people who help, all the people who prepare, be it in their house or anywhere else. But also, Ginny, I've got to say too, as a frequent visitor to this city, it's a city that is complicated like everywhere else is. But I've got to say, I do love the types of new businesses that have popped up here, even sort of in a couple of years, right? Could be something from a different looking coffee shop to a different looking pub. But it feels like Townsville, again, we've been here at different times. It feels like it's always in the fight, but it seems like it's winning at the moment.
Yeah, we're getting some big businesses now sniffing around. We've got one on the hook that will set up a new industry here in our Lansdowne precinct. We've got a heap moving into the state development area. At the moment, we've got more jobs than we have people who can fill them who are listed as being unemployed, which is why I called on people to get off their rear ends.
Well, I was going to say, mate, one of the great quotes, get off your ass and come up here. I like it. We can say it. It's late enough. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Kevin. Give them a round of applause. Good people. Thank you. All right. Quick break. Back with more here. The Royal Report in a few minutes as we're in Townsville for our town. All right, Townsville. Thank you very much. What a great night we've had here. Now, a couple of shout-outs. Of course, without Harvey Norman, none of this is possible. We give them lots of love because they give us the greatest opportunity we get, which is I got the best job in the world. I get to fire up and blow up about the news all the time. The cream on top and the cherry on top of the cream is being able to come and hang out all over the country with the people who watch the show. And I want to say thank you to how loyal you are to us all at Sky News, to me in particular. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank Alex and all of the team here at the Townsville Brewing Company. Give them a round of applause because this is a ripping joint. She's a lovely lady and they've got great staff here as well. Also, a little shout out on national television. Can you put your hands up, Ross and Joe, because they drove 100 Ks to be here tonight. So give them a little thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm always stunned by the people who actually travel to be here. But as always, again, the whole point of these shows is to celebrate regional Australia. It's not just to remind you to book a holiday, but about thinking about coming and having a life. It's to remind the people who watch us in Canberra that the people who live in Townsville or Broome or Launceston or Port Lincoln, they own you as much as anyone in Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane does, and you owe them the respect as well as the citizens and the taxpayers of the country. And that's why we do this as often as we do for 6 years in a row. It's been awesome. I look forward to doing it again next month. And Townsville, if I come back again, I promise to break one of your jet skis. Is that okay? All right, excellent. Lovely to see you, Townsville. Thank you very much. Love you guys. Love your loyalty. That's our show for tonight. Thank you very much for watching Paul Murray Live in our town. And stand by now for the Royal Report discussing all matters Windsor here on Sky News. See you tomorrow night for the Man Cave.